Okay, well, thank you for inviting me up. And Bob and I have worked each other many times, and we talk quite often. And I appreciate being invited. The I'm actually sitting in my station right now, and maybe what we can do actually is I can quit sharing because I got this PowerPoint, and I can actually show you some live stuff. But for right now, let me just start. Let me run through this thing. I'm sure some of you are familiar with my station already. But for those that haven't, I'll just run through it pretty quickly. And I think we got about 45 minutes, so I'll try to keep it within that range of things. Um, so a little bit about me. Been licensed a long time. And therefore, if you've been licensed for a long time, then you can work a lot of DX over the years. And contesting for over 50 years. Just some background behind me. So I'm kind of technical and I'm a project manager type of person. Uh, so, and I've been on several DX expeditions, and I know your club is a mix of both DXers and contesters, or maybe you all consider yourself that. And to be honest with you, that's why I designed this station. And I wanted to be able to chase DX, so that was very selfish. But at the same time, I wanted to build a competitive contest station. When I was doing that, um, uh, I asked a lot of people a lot of questions is what I did, especially from a multi standpoint. And how, because it leads to the design of the antenna system. So you really should not start until you know what it is you're going to do, and then try to figure out how to fit it on your property correctly, or find the right property, which is what I did, to design it. So when there's, for instance, the first thing everybody told me was that if you're going to do multi, there won't be enough operators. And I think that was just K3LR not wanting me to compete with him, but that's a joke. Or people like that there's not many multis because it takes a lot of operators, because there's always a run operator and a partner on every band at all times, and with few exceptions. And I'm sure you already know that. So then I was encouraged to look at multi-2. And for those that don't know, multi-2 is 2 run transmitters on 2 different bands, and then a partner. Well, you don't need a partner. You can just, the minimum would be 2 run transmitters on, say, 20 and 40 or 20 and 15. And then in my case, I wanted to run in band because you can make 10, 15, 20% more cues and way more multipliers by having a partner operating or interleaving with you at the same time. So that's the way I designed this station. So I'm sitting right now in my favorite place to sit, which is run 1. And then to my left over here is run 2. And then we each have a partner on the outside. And then what we do is when we do multi-2, if I'm running and I want to move somebody to another band, it's easy for me to wave at them or send, they're going to see it pop up on their screen anyhow, telling them if I just sent some station to them on that frequency. Then the same design concepts fall in place for SO2R, because you're operating again on two different bands, high power, and actually I do some in-band SO2R as well. You can't call CQ on more than one frequency in a band, but you can certainly work other stations in the same band. So when you're thinking about that, the strength of your signal to another receiver, when you go to design that, you got to be thinking about the physical separation of antennas, and also the pattern of the antennas, so that you're not overloading the radio in band, so that you can actually operate within, say, a kilohertz of each other. It's not that they won't be loud, it's just that you're going to be able to work stations. So a lot of that thought goes into the design. And of course, if you're going to improve anything, so over the years, it's improved the rate, multipliers, and then personally, the thing that I chase is a DXCC challenge. So, excuse me, obviously, when I was laying this out, the whole goal of the thing was to be competitive. And initially I didn't know how competitive I would be because it's hard to tell. Because I'm in the middle of the country, just like you're in California, you can't compete with the East Coast unless it's a JA contest, or you just have to pick your poison in terms of, there's no sense, you can't out design a station and beat an East Coast station from here. It's just, they could take a tri-bander and do better signal wise, because and they also have up to 90 minutes more band opening every day than we do per band. So that's a lot of QSOs. So you have to be thinking about who you're competing against. And then, of course, when you're DXing, you're competing against your peers. So I just wanted to be competitive. I had a goal that when I decided to build the station and move it from my house, I wanted to be at least 3 dB better than I was over there, regardless of the band. So that was it was a simple, but it was a number that I wanted to achieve. So what can we do here? We do multi-2, multi-1, and SO2R. I have never done a multi-1 here, but we do a lot of multi-2, and of course I do SO2R. Our operator comfort. I visited a lot of stations when I was designing this station, and I just observed a lot of things that people would either be happy about or complain about. And ergonomics is vitally important, especially for any long contests. And so you're looking at lighting, the heating and cooling, the breaks, like for food, bathrooms, sleeping, and entertainment. I wanted the guys that come and operate here to feel like they were at home and shouldn't be uncomfortable. I wanted them to be happy and not worried, just fit right in. So what I did when I was designing this, I did a lot of station tours and research. I did a lot of I used VOA area, that was very helpful for stacking antennas and patterns and comparing how I would do. HFTA, of course, that Dean Wood had created, is very, very helpful. And the land is relatively flat here. So I know that Dean said, you don't need to worry about it. It's going to be pretty flat there. And I did talk with Stu, K9CT, because he got he formatted a lot of the information that you use for HFTA. So it's available from Stu. Of course, studying the contest results and the records so that you know who you're going to compete against and who you're going to try to beat, who are the competitors. And then, of course, I got a lot of consultants to help me. I didn't want to make mistakes that other people had made. So I reached out to like W2GD, K4ZA. I flew both of those guys out here. They reviewed the plans with me. I had a PE KR7X. I don't know if you know Hank Lonberg, lives just north of you guys. He did all of the stamping of my drawings for the towers and the layout for the wind loading and the ice loading. And then I also told him I wanted the guideposts to be elevated so I could mow around them. So, and again, I hired a lawyer, and you'll see why here in a minute, but K1VR is the best in the business. And after I could spend a meeting just talking about the legal issues associated with building a station, but I will not do that. I'll just advise you that make sure before you do anything, to make sure that legally you're going to be in compliance with the codes and zoning for your area. And then, of course, I made sure we had insurance for everything, and I've already used it many times. One claim I had alone for ice and wind was $48,000. State Farm is there. So just a comment about the team, because this is a really important thing. And I don't know if you've read I wrote a story for NCJ about assembling a multi-2 station, and I discuss that quite a bit in there. But I really have a team per mode. They're excellent. Some people can go from mode to mode, and that's fine. But some people are really they prefer RTTY over sideband or CW, and they know everything about it. They're really good at it. So I've been very pleased over the years to have really good teams per mode. And of course, if you ever been on a de-expedition, they all need to be socially compatible and they need to be competitive and experienced. As I always say, the super check partial you have in your brain is faster than the computer. If you already know you work that guy in every contest, you know the call's right. That's your best super check partial is from an experienced operator. And then, of course, you have to pick contests that work for you, understand the propagation for the event, and of course, compete. And of course, that's rate and multipliers. I'll just skip that. You'll see I talk about rate, multipliers, and of course, this is something I always tell people when they call me and they say, I'm going to build a station. What do you think of this idea? The maintenance of it is a premier because it's forever. And the more towers and stuff you put up and the more motors and the whatever you got, the more work you're going to have. I have a list here. I'm constantly working. Right as you look through the camera, if you look out in that wall, through that wall right there, there's an EME tower. I've got a lift out there right now that I've been spending the last 3 or 4 days. I got to put all new cables on it, and I got to repair the preamplifiers. And there were mechanical issues, but stuff just gets beat up with the wind, and I'm sure you all have experienced that. But that's for that. I got an 80-meter Yagi that for some reason I got a voltage breakdown occurring, and I got to figure that out. So the surprises that occur are from lightning, power surges, and of course storm damage. You try to think about everything that you can do, but I have learned a lot about lightning and power surges. And again, we could talk about that as a presentation all by itself, but iteratively, I have improved my station to the point where I have had less damage. So the things that I've done is the automation. What have my peers done? And of course, that goes back to the XCC challenge. So what can I do on each band? So I'll just give you a kind of a, this was the, I'll just take my, oops, that's the wrong one. Right here is with the white building. This right here was what the blank sheet I started with. And then in literally a year, I cleared out everything. I took bulldozers and farming equipment and everything, and we stripped everything off the property, cleaned it up. They had tires. I don't know if you've looked at my website, but we cleaned up tires that they had used for ground erosion. If you actually look just above that white building, you'll see that kind of, it looks like almost a black tree. That is a pile of tires as tall as the building that we trucked out and recycled. So I'm sure it's somebody's running track now someplace. But that's what I started with. And then this is what it looked like in 2012 after we built everything. And you can see, and you'll note that the shack is down here, right where the mouse is here. And then as we get further and further away, the frequency goes down. And that was for the loss in the heliax. So there's 8,000 feet of 1 5/8" heliax buried in the ground, and 1 1/4" going to the 5-element array here for 160. So the farthest away right here is a 160, and you can actually see the radials. There's 7 miles of wire underneath that laying there. And this is the 40 meter. Oops. This is the 40 meter. And then this is the 20 meter, the 80 meter foursquare, and there's 5 miles of wire under that. And then right here's a 15 meter tower. And then this is the mult tower. And then right here is the 10 meter tower. Over here's the EME array. And I'll show you, this is a friend of mine took this as he was flying. You can actually see it a lot easier here. But you can see all of the different antennas. And if you look just to above that strip of ground with the antennas and stuff, I did buy that farm about 4 or 5 years ago, so I could have more room for receiving antennas in the wintertime. Right now, what I do is there's people renting the house, and I have a farmer that farms the ground. And then when he's done with the crops, then I put out receiving antennas. So this is what it looks like today. If you look, you can see there's a Luso tower right here. And down here is the new 6-meter EME tower. And down here is another 589 tower that I have a monster on 3-element on 40. So this is kind of an important chart. And if you look at it, you can see about 0 dBm is where overload and blocking occurs. And what you want to do is look at your radio at home and see where it's sitting. If you have it in dBm, that's great. If not, you need to convert it to S, but S signal units. But you can see here's an S9 signal level, and if you say it's whatever yours is calibrated in 3 dB or 6 dB, you can go down to whatever wherever S0 would be. But this is a typical rural noise on 20 meters, and yours may be higher or lower than that. I'm sitting here looking at mine right now. It's sitting at -120 on 40 meters. Of course, there's no signals. I'm just sitting looking at my radio. So -120. So the better that is, the better you hear. The reason I'm pointing this out, right up here is 1500 watts. It's plus 63 dBm. And if you have overload and blocking in your receiver, this is where you get a lot of signals that don't really exist on the band. And you tune across them, and they're just mixed signals because they're mixed with the transmit signal because it's so loud. So you need at least 63 dB of isolation to get it below blocking. And what you prefer to have it is so that if your partner radio, you'd want 100 and some dB down. So that's where the filtering comes in. And of course, with field day next weekend, this is a very useful chart for everyone to remember, because you can still burn up a radio. You need to have filters. It doesn't matter if you're on another band. It's RF that burns up a front end. So just stuff to remember. Very important stuff. This is the current view. If I were to turn to my right, it doesn't look exactly, it's clean right now. This is when I was working on stuff that I took. In fact, I can show you here in a second. I can show you live. But what is everything here? That is a high isolation switch. You'll notice it's got 4 outputs. It's got 12 inputs. And right here is another switch here. That is the Antenna Genius, which is an 8x2. And so what I do is I feed the run radios antennas off of here, and I feed the partner radios off of here. And so what is everything else? It's high power filters. So these are all 403A filters. These are VA7, VA7, is it DX? Or VA6, VA6, I can't remember what it's called. Sorry about that. Here, I'll go look at it. Oh, it's VA6AM, VA6AM who makes all of those filters, and he made the triplexer. So what did I do when I put the Luso in? I run 1 inch and 5/8 out there, and then I use a triplexer, and I split it with the 80. That's the 80-meter filter, and then you got a 10-meter filter and a 15-meter filter. And then I have a switch here that's out at both ends, and I can switch between that, and when I'm DXing, I switch to a long Yagi on 1217. But the reason everything here is together is because you notice the lightning protection all along this base plate. Everything's a common ground. And then you'll notice also I have, they're in different places right this second because I moved them, I'll show them to you. But I have, these are combining antennas so that I can switch directions very quickly or combine antennas very quickly. And the reason all these are together is that this is a server location for all control of all rotators and the steppers and all the antenna switches. So I use green heron everywhere. Then right above that, right above this, where you can see those going, is a computer. And so then from there on, everything is on the LAN. So you only have 4 cables going to the radios, and the rest is done on the LAN. So it's a very simple wiring. You'll see that tray above it. This is back when I had Elecraft radios. And the layout then, I had 87 A's, and you can see the 100-watt filters that I got from Array Solutions. And I think that's K7MI's design, but it's W3NQN actual filters. But that's when I first started. And then presently, this is what the wiring looked back then. This is what the station, well, this was an interim step. And this is what the station looks like right now. So you can see I switched everything to flex. I have gaming chairs, which is really great for operating, for contesting for long periods of time. And then you'll see this big screen that you can get a lot of stuff on a screen, but it's set up all 4 positions.
I'm not seeing the slide deck. Is it up?
What'd you say?
I'm not seeing the slide deck. Is it up?
Yeah. Why aren't you seeing it?
If I knew, I wouldn't be asking.
I know. I wish I could tell you.
Do you see it there, Bob?
Swipe your screen left.
Got it. Thanks.
You fix it?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the way the station looks right now. If I were to show you the live camera, it'd be almost like this right now. So you'll note some things that I keep there. This is obviously set up for a phone contest because all of the paddles are not visible that I can see. So no, it's a RIDI contest. It's a RIDI contest because we got the roller balls there. So on the left up at the top, you'll see the paddle sitting on top of it, but that's a UPS. So you have a UPS per station. And so if the power fails, you do not go off the air. You're still on the air with 100 watts. And then the generator kicks on in less than 1 minute and you can go back to full power. And with solid state amps, it's just bang, bang, you're right back on again. So yeah, the filter obviously is the next item. Then above that is a tuner. That's the TGXL. And you say, why do I have a tuner? Well, if you do combining of antennas, sometimes the impedance isn't perfect. So on rare occasions, like when I'm doing SO2R, I might have 3 40-meter Yagis on at the same time. The match isn't very good. I mean, it's 1.5 to 1, but I can make it 1 to 1 or 1.5, 1, with a tuner, make it really good. And then below that is a PGXL, so it switches back and forth as fast as you can operate. The stations are interlocked. So if one person's transmitting, the other person cannot. But the second that person lets up, that person can now transmit, and that amplifier will switch as quickly as you can go back and forth. And we'll do that RIDI 1500 watts back and forth in band or in different bands. So it's pretty cool. And then you can see there's a bell. See the gold thing sitting there? So teacher's bell. We have a rule, and we do not allow that bell to be rung, and we always set a limit. Like if we're doing WPX, we'll say 750 multipliers, and after that we can hit the bell. So then, because otherwise the bell goes crazy, because you got to sleep sometime. But everybody likes hitting that bell. We have a bell per station, and everybody grabs for that bell every time you work the multiplier. But you can see the nice screens there. Then you can see the Maestro and of course the radio behind it. And so this is what it looks like right when we were operating the last contest. This was set up for them to operate. So they come in now, they're all operating, and every one of these is a noted RIDI operator. And that's what they're doing. I do not use headsets. You will see some of them do. I do not like to listen to RIDI tones. I want to hear something else in the shower after the contest other than RIDI tones. But so anyhow, this is what it looks like. And of course, this is what it used to look like before we changed screens. And so this is what it also looked like in CQ Worldwide. But I want to show you with the new screen. see how you can get, well, this is actually during the Digi contest when I was operating SO2R for the Digi contest. So then I'm rolling back and forth with the roller ball, and you can click them as fast as you just, because it's alternating sequences here. And of course, FT4 is very fast. If you're running FT8, that's fast enough. But if you're out running FT4, it's pretty quick. So any digital contest, this is how I do it. But I love these screens because there's so much room to do everything. And of course, here's the ready now. You saw previously, now you can see what it's like. And we use the roller ball because you can just roll back and forth very quickly. We do not touch the keyboard at all. It's all done with a roller ball.
Well, I would have, mic's not on.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, okay. This is Dave, W60E. What's the size of that monitor? Is that a 34 inch?
No, I think I think it's just well, you're probably right, 34 or 35. It's an LG model.
Okay, it just looks larger than my 34 inch, and I was just wondering how you found a bigger one.
Well, it's curved too, and man, I just love this thing. Every operator that's coming here, just they end up going home and buying them. But anything like this, of course, I highly recommend it. And Windows 11 works really well with it. When I went, it was kind of funny because I was Windows 10 with the dual monitors before. When I went to put this monitor on the Windows 10, it was not compatible. And they said, "Oh, the upgrade's coming," and blah blah blah. Well, the upgrade was Windows 11.
Okay, thanks. You covered me.
Okay, yep. So anyhow, if you take a look at this, also you can see on the screen. Well, I'm going to cover it later too, but you can see all the choices. Let me show you here. Right here is the combination of antennas and and up here is all of the antennas available and the rotators associated with them. And I'll do a drill down on that later, but you can see I'm using MMTTY and two-tone. So it's actually set up now for, this looks like maybe a sideband contest. Same configuration layout. This is how easy it is for SO2R on a Flex radio. There's no interface boxes, nothing. It uses OTRSP. This is a tower I added for south, gave us great isolation. I use this to turn from east to west through south. So we'll go Caribbean, which is about 135 degrees or 150 degrees to South America, rotated around 200 degrees to Mexico, and ZL and then VK. So that the partner can work all of those while the guys are running, like say Europe. I mean, we could pick off stuff. And I just a comment, my daughter lives in that house, but where that garage is right now, we have a new building. We're building a new house there for her, and we're going to tear that house down. So I have a constant person here watching over everything, but that's what's going on there. When I bought the property, that's where the people live. So for the automation here, I use a client server basis, and that minimizes all the wiring. I use Green Heron everywhere, which is free software, but at the same time, you have to buy the devices in order to make things work, but I highly recommend it. Each station is a client. The other thing is it's got an antenna lockout so that you can't make a mistake. What I do is the antenna follows the radio, so using the packets. In particular, when you're running and you switch bands, you automatically get the next stack. But if the stack is in use by somebody else, you'll get something else. You won't get that. But the guy running automatically follows. He gets the stack. He always gets the best antenna. And then PST Rotator AZ. I use that for innumerable things. That's a really great product. You only have to pay for one license, but you can use it on several cases. But I use that for the stepper, a client server interface. It's fantastic. So what I do is over here on my, where you saw the wall and all the stepper controllers, and there's a story there, by the way, I'll come back to, but that just uses a USB interface and goes in and comes up with a COM port. and then appears in PST rotator AZ, and then it's served then as a client, so you can put it on the partner radios in particular. It's pretty slick. And I also use it for the Cell 30. I don't know if anybody's got a Cell receiving antenna, but also he set that up so it'll take packets for that, and that's pretty cool. So SO2R screen, you've seen that. This is actually a close-up of all the rotators. So the green buttons are each antenna on the stacks. So if you got a 10 high, 10 middle, and 10 low, and it's aimed at Caribbean or South America right now, each green light means that all the antennas are on. And so like early morning when the band is opening, you may just have the top 2 antennas on. Or later in the day, or during the band, you may have the bottom 2, or you may have all 3 of them on, because it's just signals are coming in from everywhere. So you can see on 15 meters that right now it's on the top 2. On 20 meters, you can just see it's the low antenna. And it's pretty interesting, the effect that it has. A single Yagi has quite a dip right in the, if you take a look at the pattern of the takeoff angle of a Yagi, you have a low lobe, and then you have a dip, and then you have a higher lobe. And when you stack 2 antennas, it takes out that dip, smooths it out. And boy, I tell you, talk about a difference maker. But I've had de-expeditions where you'll never know how it's arriving, and you just click from one to the other, or if it's long path or short path, or it's the arrival angle changes. So when you think you're not hearing and your buddy is, it's just the height of the antenna and the arrival angle. So it's really nice to have all these tools while you're operating. Of course, the 40-meter Yagi is down just below that, and that's a stack of 2 4 elements. And again, we can split them, but a lot of times the 2 is perfect. The Monster is the stepper antenna that's the 3 element, and it's on the south tower. And and what's interesting is you can click on if I hover the mouse over the 143, it actually, I have presets in there already. So if I say, say Europe, Caribbean, JA, LU, XE, things like that, guys we generally don't move the stacks very much in a contest. It's either EU or JA. The guys that change a lot are the multiplier guys. So I'll go through here right now. On the left, you have the filters, and on the right is the antennas. And so that's actually just going from antenna to antenna and to antenna as you choose and go through them. So this is the stepper controller, and you can see from the stepper the frequency it's on and to what it should be sending from the radio to the stepper. And you can say which antenna you want it to go to. So everything is networked in here, and especially with the Flex radios use all of the network for interfacing. So obviously you need a network for connecting to the internet, for security. I have a security system in here, cameras in here, fire alarm. I have, of course, spotting networks. We all use that. The radios interface, computers interface, and of course, the Internet of Things, the IoT. We don't hear that much anymore, but of course, Green Heron and the stepper interfaces would fit in that. So generally, it kind of looks like this. All those devices and the hubs, and then each computer goes back to the server, and I hardwire everything, and I'm using a shielded cable, Cat6 shielded cables, and a managed switch. And I leave a wireless separate for just my guests. So that keeps the traffic, because I actually have, to my left out here, I have a TV room, and we can stream, like if there's a football game in the wintertime or a basketball game somebody wants to see, we can stream it, and it doesn't take away from our network traffic. So obviously I mentioned this, skilled operators, the pilot management, mode preferences, the team skills. One thing I've noticed year after year after year, we get better and better at that, because there's interleaving, and you have to be very patient with each other when you're interleaving. When the guy's running, say 150 an hour, and there's plenty of time to interleave. but he doesn't want to lose the frequency. So when it gets to the point, like in the first thing in the morning, it could be 200, 225 in the mornings. It could be very fast, and there's really no time unless there's a real, like, a rare multiplier that we know we need to get. And then the partner has to know what multi you can get on first call, so he doesn't screw up the run operator. Later, it's not a problem when you're 8 to 16 hours into the contest. Things slow down. You're not going to see. You might see morning European sunrise openings that are very quick on 2 days. But other than that, there's time to make sure you can in or leave. And of course, I mentioned the super check knowledge. One thing that happened during COVID is I was kind of bored with things to do. So I decided to go ahead and add the Luso Tower. And I had an 80-meter Yagi, and I had put it up and took it down because it was going to destroy the tower it was on. And so I kept thinking the only tower this is ever going to work on is the Luso Tower, and just to keep it down. So anyhow, my idea was put the 80-meter Yagi at 150 feet. I talked to JK Antennas, and he would make me a 12-17 long boom Yagi. And then I talked to Tim K3LR about 10 and 15 OWAs, because that's what I use for the rest. Everything's OWAs. And he had redesigned the OWA. So I bought everything from Tim, JK, and went ahead. Now this is actually, I'm not going to show you this, but this is actually taking it off of the tower that it was going to destroy. That's the 80-meter Yagi. This is actually a picture of the tornado tuner that I use for, that's a adjustable coil, and I'll show you that, and with the choke that goes to it. This is on the ground. This is the loading coils and the elements. This is dimensions, 59-foot boom. It's 4.5 inches in the center, and the reflector is 84 feet. So you get an idea. Hairpin match, tornado coils, and of course, what I did is I used green heron wirelessly, and I'll show you how I did that. So each element is individually tuned. Yagi's tuned for maximum gain. I have presets for each band segment. I have 50 kilohertz band segments. All controls are at the antenna. So it weighs 650 pounds, so it's not a small antenna. This is the JK 12-17 mega antenna. It's interlaced on 12 and 17. And this is the SWR, pretty low. 12, same. This is the new design for the 15-meter Greg Gordy W8 WWV redesigned this. A lot of tweaking. Almost made, after I put them up, I almost thought I should take down every Yagi and rebuild it around this. This is a fantastic design. So look at how clean that pattern is. Excuse me. And I can tell you when I rotate it, it is really, really good antenna. Of course, you've seen this. I just with the filters, okay. So when I'm going to just tell a little side story, because I said this before. I had the original building permit, then I got another building permit and added another one, and then this particular time they had changed the code, zoning code, just for me, of course, so that I couldn't do this without a variance, and so there was a limit to 36 feet. And I called Fred again, and Fred said, well, first of all, it's illegal. We've got 7 appellate court rulings already in our favor. We just need to talk to the zoning attorney. So long story short, I was able to get the permit to do this, and I already showed you this, but I had to get a variance, and I had to have hearings. I had hearings out the wazoo, and and of course, here, let me back up. That's actually the approval. And then, of course, to get a permit, I had to go ahead and I had to get everything. I had to get a PE stamp again. So I had to, because I was putting in Luso Tower, they wanted me to do the geo, they wanted ground sampling down to 30 feet. So I had to get soil samples. So anyhow, it goes through this. Then another thing I found out, if you guys need a PE stamp in any state, this is the company right here, Tower Engineering Professionals. remember that or write it down. It's something to remember. I found that from Roan Tower. Roan Tower happens to be located in Peoria. And so when I went and bought the Roan 65 for the 6-meter antenna, I found who stamped it, and I called them up on their phone. I said, would you like to reverse engineer a Luso tower, because it's Chinese and they won't accept the engineering from the Chinese. So I had to have them do that. 375 pages later, I get the stamp of approval here from the Illinois licensed structural engineer. So now I could actually get a building permit. 375 pages. And this is what it looks like. And every one of those, like the top level, you can see is the 1/6, the 80-meter Yagi. And then the C, you can see the C, and that denotes where the 15 would be. The D is where the 1217 is, and the E is where the 10 is. And you can see there's a platform there and a basket that's marked in red. So anyhow, it was issued. We could go ahead with that. I'm just going to run through this very quickly. This is the base for that. It's unbelievable. I laid the drill there so you could get an idea how big the base is for the tower. And so these are all the things that I had to do. So here we are. We started digging the hole. This is where the ground sample was taken. And so it had to be perfect, of course, straight down. And you can see all the other antennas. We get it down there to the exact place where we want it. We had to be perfect. And then we had to dig a little hole in there. This was for lightning protection. And you can see we just hit the water level when that occurred. Now, in the wintertime, the water table is within a few inches of the soil level. So we picked a great time to do this. And this is the lightning cage. Then we had to carefully put everything in, put this in. What's funny about this next picture, I want you to notice how this probably would not be approved by OSHA. Take a look at how the New Holland is holding the little Kubota from tipping over. I don't know which operator I'd want to be. But anyhow, they got it lowered down, and we had to have it within a 1/16 of an inch. And we carefully kept moving around. And then I had a friend of mine come out, and he welded you can see the welding that's done there for the lightning protection. Then I had a couple of guys that are iron workers come. I got them right out of the Union Hall. And these guys built this in one day. Unbelievable. I ordered the rebar, prepared, but these guys wired it all together and made the cage. Fantastic. Now here we are with, we're filling the cement carefully in, because you got to be careful you don't just, move that base. And because, if you were to just dump cement in, it would dislodge the base and you would be pretty well done and have to start all over again. But we're carefully using a pipe, a pump to pump the cement. And you can see that there's in the back over here on the right, you can see a truck is backed up. Actually, there were 7 trucks lined up to back it back in. That's you can see the operator's operating remote control there in the yellow. And then the guy to the left of him is the county engineer. He was so excited about what we were doing here. He wanted to come out and see what we were doing. So here we are. But you can see all the trucks coming in now. See them backing up? Put in 110 cubic yards of concrete. And you have to leave a little gap between by the way, we wrapped the base with plastic so that it wouldn't be stuck with cement. And then you can see a gap because that's where the cables have to go. Then we went ahead and we poured the base for the 6-meter EME array. So here's the Luso arriving on a truck. And this is really cool in that we could take off the top of the truck. And I got a crane here and they carefully lifted it out. I could actually, I think, play that maybe. No, I guess not. So that is a weight. There's 2 10,000-pound weights. And then the rotator. That's a base rotator. And I love their marketing, K9CT. Here it is laying there, ready to go. We had to let the cement cure for 30 days. They said it'd still be curing for a year. Anyhow, you can see Luso Ma, the gal to the right. If you've gone to Hambench, you may have met her. And she's part of the deal. If you put one of these up, she flies in from Tokyo and she helps put it together. And on the left over here are a couple of guys out of Arkansas that are also have put up several towers, and I wanted them here because they actually made it go very smoothly. They had put up Luso towers before, so I didn't have to read a manual. I just stayed out of their way. And here's the crane lifting everything in place, putting the weights on. This is the rotator. Right, the thing. This is what raises and lowers, but it's a counter, uses counterweights so that to minimize the size of the motor. These are the antennas, the new OWAs.
Craig, how do you protect the rotor from weather in the wintertime, snow and ice?
Okay, there is actually a cover that goes over the top of it. Right now it's actually covered. And I have found out that anything below 30 degrees, that rotator has a hard time operating. So I put a heater in the base with a thermostat.
I understand I don't operate so well at that temperature either.
Yeah, well, but when's contest season? It's when it's cold. So there's the 80-meter Yagi. And of course, I had a chance to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. And so after it was all done, another friend of mine, Tower Works, came in with their small crane, and they put up everything. And of course, I had a JLG making everything, but they put everything together. And this is what it looks like when it's elevated. Which is interesting, by the way. Before you do that, you have to have equal amount of weight as to what the antennas would be, or the antenna will go up by itself, and then you can't get it back down. So we had to put weights on it, and then we had to tie it so it would not release. This is a little video of it. It shows and the reason this is interesting, you can see now that you're going to see the tornado tuner that is actually changing the frequency of the Yagi. So I tested every one of them, and each one of those is wireless. And so what I did is the only wire out there is 240 volts and the 1 5/8. The green heron stuff is all wireless. So rotating the tower and antenna tuning, I have 3 of these. I use 3 of these green herons, and I have them all synced so that they track together. And this is what it looks like in the little box at the base of the tower. You can see the triplexer there from VA6AM, and a switch down at the bottom to switch between the 1217 and the triplexer. Then you'll see a UPS, power supply, green heron receiver right behind, and then the 4 green heron GH21s going to an antenna outside aimed back. So I decided to, well, if you want to see this this is a view on the right side is Europe. You can't see it, but that's where it's at. And it's the Yagi I'm up as a DB42 at 140 feet. So I thought I'd take a picture. And so that's what the stepper, and you can see how the cable was trenched in, and you can see where the cement trucks drove and blah, blah, blah over the wintertime. That's before it had anything in there. But I wanted to show you the DB42 because the other thing that occurred to me was they came out with all these parts to rebuild them, and I was going to rebuild that. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm not going to do that. So anyhow, as you drive to the station, this is what it looks like. You can see right here is the Luso. Over here is the 160 meter. That's the 40 meter. No, that's a 160. That's a 40 meter because they're close to 200 feet tall. So is the 20. And then down here's the 15 is about 150, and then the mult is 150. So as you come down the road, you can see what it looks like. As you get closer, it's kind of cool. And then, of course, this is looking over one of the buildings and trees. I like this picture here, gives you better perspective.
What will you be using when stepper parts finally are gone?
Well, I'm going to tell you in just a second. One thing about this, the antennas move at a different rate when they're going up. In other words, the longest coax is going to be to the 80-meter Yagi. So the cables don't travel together. And that's something to think about when you're, so I never raise or lower this antenna without me being there. I stand there and I look at it, I watch it. And it goes into that basket. They've got all kinds of ideas and methods and blah, 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 but I don't want to ruin any cables. And so I watch it every single time. Sometimes I've had to climb up there and just make sure it's not caught on something. But if you're ever contemplating doing stacking, it doesn't matter if you're using US tower or this, if you have them attached to different places, you have a problem. If they're all together on a mast, it's not a problem. But that's a motorized. So I'm going to come to your stepper question in a minute, but I had another problem. These are HBX towers, and the wind blew them over. I'd had them for 14 years, and I thought I need to do something. So I talked to K3LR because he had the same setup, and he had switched to aluminum. And you could see the weather. What had happened is the ice and the water had broken the insulators, and I just thought I'm going to do something completely different. So I went to aluminum towers, and you can see them laying out on the ground right here, ready to go up. And I had to have bases adapted and made. So I made these bases. I had a friend of mine, the same guy that did the welding, he has a machine shop, and he made me bases that would fit the bases that I use for HBX. This is actually the pattern for the 4-square. Then I talked to JK Antennas, and he came up with these insulators for me. They're very strong. He said they're stronger than the aluminum. And so he prepared them for me. And this is the final product right here. We actually lowered them in place with a JLG, welded them perfectly. And then so that everything is tight and level. I made sure everything was level. So this is what it looks like right now. And I really like this view right here. When I saw a double rainbow and I said, oh, I got to go out and take a picture. This might be something for QST. So what about the stepper 42s? DB42s. I was one of the first guys to buy them because I thought, oh man, this is an antenna where it covers A to Z here. And I benefited greatly from them. Think about all the different antennas. But actually, I was 71. I'm 73 right now. So I thought, what am I doing? I can't climb this tower forever fixing this antenna. And a lot of these, when you need to fix them or get them, you have to get a crane, you have to get them down, you have to work on them, get a crane, put them back up, blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, you know what? I want them to stay up. I want whatever I do to be up there 10 years without me looking at them. And so I decided to sell them and get rid of them. And I actually had 3 DB42s. I can't say I had a spare because one of them was a damaged one from that ice and wind event that I told you about. And I bought all the replacement parts to make it into a whole antenna again. So I had a spare antenna. But anyhow, I decided to take them down and sell them. I was very successful. I sold them. I did not know anything about stepper or any of that. So they were not happy with me when they heard that I took these down because they thought, well, you know, you can buy the commercial model. And I said, well, I know, but I don't want to be in the maintenance business at my age. So I decided to go with JK antennas. And what I was thinking about was better in-band isolation. What this did, I put up a 40-meter Yagi on the top, and I put a 20-meter 7-element. No, it's 6 elements. 6 elements on at 70 foot. So this is what replaced those DB42s. Been very, very happy with that. I tell you, the JK antennas he builds them well. He's a great guy. He is very cooperative and very helpful in numerable subjects. And so here with the Luso, I now have better isolation in band on 10 and 15. I have better isolation now on 20 and 40 than I ever had before. And that was, I'm sure, generated more QSOs. Does it make sense? You know, is it worth that? I don't know that, except I know I got rid of what was probably going to be a lot of work for me as I age. Let's see next. So the 6 meter, I got this idea from Ned and Lee. Maybe you guys know them. They quite often are at Visalia, and I studied what they did, and this is what they had done. So I went ahead and I prepared this. I've always been into 6 meter, 2 meter EME. I have a DXCC on NW and worked all states on 2 meters. But if you think about it, the DXCC challenge allows 6 meter QSOs. So I thought I could tack on more countries by having a 6 meter EME array. So this is the antenna that I chose. They're very clean. I had when I owned a company up until just a little bit ago, and I had a draftsman, and he's a ham too, by the way. Became a ham while he worked for me, and I said, "Here, draw this up," and he did, and that's what we use for the PE stamp. And this is what, after building it, I used drone 25 cross there. The rotator is really cool. It's a solar panel rotator, very strong. And you'll notice though that I have everything tied down because the winds are also very strong, and I keep it from yanking against constant beating of against the gears of that motor. So I'm really, and one night the moon was absolutely perfect. And I thought I'm going to just take a picture of that. So I love that picture of the 6 meter array. Just a comment. This is I'm very proud of this because I conclude with this, and then answer questions or whatever you want to do. But never been #1 world in anything. And for some reason, a lot of people did not operate, so they couldn't beat us in CQ Worldwide RTTY. But you think about it, from Illinois, we were able to win #1 world in the CQ Worldwide RTTY contest. So I'm very proud of that. And actually, here's the next one is the team that did that. Just really, so anyhow, I jumped around all over the place, but if you've got questions, of course, some of you jumped in anyhow whenever you wanted, which is great. But if you have any questions or you want to see, I'm actually in the shack and I have another camera here. I can pick up this camera and skip around if you wanted to.
I have a question for you from engineering standpoint. What is your maximum cable loss that you will accept? I mean, how many, you're running 1 5/8" out there at a certain frequency. What's your maximum loss?
My goal was 0.5 dB or less.
Okay, very good. And then you mentioned isolation between antennas. How do you account for that? Is it frequency isolation that you're getting or what?
Okay, well, no, it's just energy.
Energy. Okay, very good.
So, yeah, so.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand now. I'm a VHF UHF engineer for Motorola, so we deal a lot in wavelength isolation. So it was energy isolation. You just weren't getting overload. Yeah, I'm trying in any way possible. And we always discuss it at the end of the contest. We always discuss what little problems did we run into. A lot of you say train, when somebody mentioned training, when most of the operators that come here, they just sit down and operate. But one thing that happens is I end up changing antennas a little bit here and there. And then of course I know it, they don't know it. So I have to remind them, okay, this antenna goes this way, don't point it that way.
And I have, so in some cases, I have it so that they can't turn antennas. It stops them. So they can't turn that antenna that direction. And then they'll say, so what antenna do I use? Well, it's usually your partner that should be doing that. So just try to be careful.
Thank you.
Hey, Craig, Bob, W1RH.
Yes, sir.
Which, are you using 6700s? Have you moved over to the new 8000 line?
Okay, the answer is I have 4 8600s now. Right here, 4 8600s and the C Maestros. And I did order one of the Auroras, and I don't know why, but I just did.
Well, you got 500 watts.
Is it at my house? Maybe, I don't know.
So, I'm running the 6700 series stuff and the amp and everything.
You mentioned something, and I need to comment about that.
Well, my question was, what kind of difference are you seeing between the 8600s and, yeah.
Okay, so I got rid of my 6600s after I got the 8600s, and I was kind of blown away. I'd love to bring an Elecraft or some other radios in here at the same time and have them in band to see how clean they are. The 8600s are so clean, it made a huge difference in band. And it's just cleaner devices. I don't know. I can't tell. I can't explain that part. It's just clean. The 6700s are very clean also. 6500 was clean. 66 was not as clean, but I'd like to compare. And what we're dealing with is huge RF signals here. 63 dBm is loud, and so to be able to work in band, I'll put it this way: the second harmonic is less than S5 here. So think about that: 63 dBm and it's S5. So adjacent signal, adjacent band, separation, with all the ice, the filters are 50 dB each. So a band to band is 100. And then you got and of course we're using solid state amps. So you've got to be worried about the third harmonic. There's just all these things you got to think about to make sure you got a really clean signal. But I was impressed in band. It'd be interesting to take 2 K4s and have in band. I'd like to see that. Just to see how close you could actually operate in this environment.
Anybody have another question for him? Craig, what amps are you using right now?
Well, I'm using the PGXL, which is Flex Radio sells them, but they're made by 403A Renko. And you'll see that he just put out that he's got one he's going to introduce the Frederick shop, and they're 2000 watt plates, 2 of them in each amp. So you can operate SO2R with 2000 watts on each side, which is of course illegal in the United States, but whatever. But anyhow, I use this for SO2R, and so I actually keep a spare in case something happens. But I keep spare everything so that in case something happens, it's not a crisis. And
yeah, this is W6DE again.
Yep.
I also have a PGXL, and another guy here, Bob, does too. And what has been your experience? It's been my experience is that solid state amplifiers are fairly fragile. They do not stand up to operator errors. What's your experience been with your PGXLs?
well, my experience has been really good. I mean, we try to blow them up here, believe me. And it's because everybody's so tired or they make mistakes and stuff happens. But I've noticed, because I had some originals, I'll call them A's. And I don't know if you know the history of the amplifier, but the original ones had some issues, and anytime somebody sent them back, then they updated them. But if you still have an old one, older, you can still get it fixed if something happens, but, anyhow, these newer versions are really good, and I can't tell you when the date was. It's probably been 2 or 3 years since they upgraded what they were doing, but, and about any way you could blow them up. We've tried shorts, wrong antennas, and I can tell you when we first started, I had one of their test amplifiers here, and I'd have it open. I mean, so they'd ask me to run it into nothing, run it into shorts. I would say that they've got a lot of fail-safe things in it, and that's probably one of its biggest problems. It's got too many things that it checks.
Yeah, but W6 or W1 SRD,
Yeah,
the expedition guy says that was PGXL was the only amplifier they've ever taken on a DXpedition that didn't blow up.
yeah. We took 6 of them to Sable last year. Think about that. I mean, we had anything that could happen. I mean, just the island with rain and water and crap and antennas blown over, and they just kept on working.
Okay, you covered the bases. Mine's only a couple months old, so I'm doing fine. Thanks.
No, you should be really good. You've got what they call the best.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Well, Craig, thank you very much. I think we've covered the questions here in house.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being there very much. Look for you on the air.
That's my VHF side. We didn't even talk about that very much, but that's a K6, I think it was a PQL amplifiers up there, solid state. Those are all brand new, and but that's I operate a VHF contest SO2R, so I just keep that. That's a 2-meter EME position over here. Just moved it over there. So anyhow.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys. You guys have a great Saturday. Good weekend.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you for your time.
Yep, 73, thanks.